There is a dry lake bed in the Nevada desert, 83 miles northwest of Las Vegas, that does not officially exist on any public map with its real name. The United States government did not acknowledge it publicly until 2013. For decades, the workers who built and flew some of the most extraordinary aircraft in history were driven to it in windowless buses, signed lifetime secrecy agreements, and watched as the planes they worked on were classified so deeply that their families never knew what they did for a living. That place is called Area 51, and the aircraft that were born there, the X-planes, the black programs, the experimental platforms that the public never saw, form an unbroken technological lineage that runs directly to the F-47, America's newest and most advanced fighter jet. Leave your like, subscribe, and share. Let's begin. The official name of the facility is the Nevada Test and Training Range, specifically the installation at Groom Lake. The CIA began using it in 1955, when the agency was searching for a remote location to test a new high-altitude reconnaissance aircraft that was so secret it could not be flown anywhere near populated areas or existing military bases. The aircraft was the U-2, designed by Kelly Johnson and his team at Lockheed's Skunk Works division in Burbank, California. The U-2 could fly at altitudes exceeding 70,000 feet, far above the ceiling of any Soviet fighter or surface-to-air missile system of the era, and it could photograph a swath of territory 750 miles wide on a single pass. The Groom Lake facility was chosen because its remote location and restricted airspace made it virtually impossible for unauthorized observers to see what was flying there. Kelly Johnson's Skunk Works is the institution most responsible for what Area 51 became. Johnson had developed a management philosophy that was the antithesis of the conventional defense contractor model. Small teams, brilliant engineers given maximum autonomy, minimal bureaucracy, rigid secrecy, fast timelines. The U-2 went from concept to first flight in 8 months, a timeline that would be considered impossible by modern program management standards. That culture of accelerated, secretive innovation became the template for everything that followed at Groom Lake. And it is the culture that produced the aircraft that built the technological foundation for sixth-generation fighters. After the U-2, the next major program at Groom Lake was the A-12 OXCART. The A-12 was the CIA's successor to the U-2, a Mach 3 reconnaissance aircraft that could cruise at altitudes above 80,000 feet and outrun any interceptor or missile system in the world. It was the fastest air-breathing aircraft ever built by the United States, and its design incorporated the first serious application of radar-absorbing materials to a production aircraft. Kelly Johnson's team studied the radar cross-section of various shapes, working with radar physicist Dennis Overholser, who had developed mathematical models for predicting how shapes reflected radar energy. The result was an aircraft with a dramatically reduced radar signature compared to any previous design, not the near invisibility of later stealth aircraft, but a meaningful reduction that added survivability margins. The A-12 flew its first mission over North Vietnam in 1967 and its final operational mission in 1968 before being replaced by the SR-71 Blackbird. The SR-71 is the aircraft most people associate with the Groom Lake legacy, but it was actually operated primarily from other bases. The truly revolutionary stealth work happened at Area 51 in the 1970s, with a program that remained classified for decades. Have Blue. Have Blue was the demonstrator program that proved the concept of faceted stealth, the idea that an aircraft's radar cross-section could be reduced to near zero by constructing it entirely from flat surfaces, angled to deflect radar energy away from the emitting radar. The theoretical work behind Have Blue came from a 1962 paper by Soviet physicist Pyotr Ufimtsev, published openly in the Soviet Union but largely ignored there, which was discovered by a Lockheed mathematician named Denis Overholser and recognized as the key to true radar invisibility. Have Blue flew at Groom Lake in 1977. The aircraft looked like nothing that had ever flown before, a collection of flat triangular panels arranged in a shape that bore more resemblance to a geometric abstraction than a conventional airplane. Pilots who flew it described its handling qualities as genuinely dangerous. The design was so aerodynamically unstable that it required a fly-by-wire computer system to make it controllable, but its radar cross-section was extraordinary. In radar range tests, The aircraft was essentially invisible to the systems that evaluated it. Have Blue demonstrated that stealth was not science fiction, it was engineering reality. That demonstrator led directly to the F-117 Nighthawk, which became the world's first operational stealth aircraft, and which made its combat debut over Panama in 1989 before its famous performance in the Gulf War of 1991. Leave your like, subscribe, and share. The F-117 program is important not just for what it was, but for what it proved and what it led to. The F-117 demonstrated in combat that stealth worked, that an aircraft with near-zero radar cross-section could penetrate the most heavily defended airspace in the world and strike targets with precision. During Operation Desert Storm, F-117 aircraft flew only 2.5% of all sorties but struck more than 40% of all strategic targets. Not a single F-117 was lost in combat during Desert Storm. That operational validation of stealth technology unlocked the investment and institutional confidence that made the B-2A Spirit and eventually the F-22 and F-35 possible. Everything built at Groom Lake in the 1970s paid dividends for the next 4 decades. But the public story of Area 51 stealth programs is only part of the picture. Alongside the known programs, U-2, A-12, Have Blue, F-117, there have been persistent reports and occasional declassified hints of other programs that pushed the boundaries of aviation technology in ways that are only now becoming clear. The Senior Citizen Program and various tacit programs developed radar-evading concepts that informed later generations of low-observable aircraft. The Bird of Prey program, which Boeing ran from 1992 to 1999 and declassified in 2002, tested a single-surface curved stealth design with no vertical tail that demonstrated the aerodynamic feasibility of configurations that would later influence sixth-generation concepts. The YF-23, which competed against the YF-22 for the Advanced Tactical Fighter contract in the early 1990s, incorporated stealth features and a tailless configuration that was arguably more advanced aerodynamically than the F-22 that won, and elements of its design philosophy can be seen in the direction that sixth-generation programs have taken. The X-plane designation itself has a specific meaning in American aviation history. The X-series began with the X-1, the Bell aircraft in which Chuck Yeager broke the sound barrier on October 14, 1947. It continued through a long lineage of experimental aircraft designed to test specific technologies or flight regimes. The X-15 rocket plane that reached the edge of space, the X-29 that flew with forward-swept wings, the X-36 tailless fighter demonstrator, the X-45 and X-47 unmanned combat air vehicle demonstrators that proved the feasibility of autonomous carrier-based aircraft. Each of these programs produced hard data on technologies that were incorporated into subsequent operational aircraft. The X-planes are not curiosities, they are the research investments that make operational aircraft possible. The X-36 is particularly relevant to the F-47 story. The X-36 was a subscale tailless fighter demonstrator built by Boeing's Phantom Works division and tested at Dryden Flight Research Center, which is associated with the Edwards Air Force Base Test Complex, in 1997. The aircraft had no vertical tail and used thrust vectoring and differential control surface deflection to maintain directional control, demonstrating that a highly maneuverable fighter could be designed without the radar-reflecting vertical surfaces that conventional aircraft require. The X-36 flew 31 flights and validated the control law algorithms needed to make a tailless design work. That research directly informed the design philosophy of aircraft that came after it, including concepts that fed into the NGAD program. The connection between these experimental programs and the F-47 runs through Boeing's Phantom Works, the advanced research and development division that operates in parallel with Boeing's mainstream defense business. Phantom Works has been the home of some of the most significant classified aviation programs in recent American history, including work on stealth materials, advanced propulsion integration, sensor fusion architectures, and autonomous systems. When Boeing won the F-47 contract over Lockheed Martin, it was not a surprise to those who had been following the trajectory of Phantom Works research. The company had been systematically building the technological blocks for a sixth-generation fighter for decades, much of it in facilities connected to the Groom Lake test infrastructure. The materials science work that happened at and around Area 51 programs is foundational to what the F-47 will be. Radar-absorbing materials have evolved enormously from the iron ball paint used on early stealth aircraft. Modern, low-observable coatings are multi-layer composites that absorb radar energy across a wide range of frequencies, are more durable and easier to maintain than the coatings on the F-117 and early B-2, and can be applied to complex curved surfaces that the faceted designs of early stealth aircraft could not use. Infrared signature management, reducing the heat signature of engines and aerodynamic heating, has advanced in parallel. The F-47 will incorporate materials and coatings developed through decades of classified testing at Groom Lake and related facilities, and its radar cross-section will be lower than any previous operational aircraft. The propulsion testing infrastructure at Area 51 has been equally critical. Testing a new engine in an experimental aircraft requires remote facilities where the noise, heat, and potential catastrophic failure of an advanced propulsion system will not endanger populated areas. The adaptive cycle engines expected to power the F-47 have been tested in demonstrator programs, the X-8 program and related efforts, that use the Groom Lake and Edwards test infrastructure. Ground test cells, altitude simulation chambers, and flight test ranges where engine performance can be measured across all flight regimes have been essential to developing the propulsion technology that will give the F-47 its extraordinary range and performance. The electronic warfare and sensor testing work at Area 51 is perhaps the most sensitive element of the program history. Understanding what adversary radar systems can detect requires testing your own aircraft against representative versions of those systems, either actual captured systems or American-built replicas. The 527th Aggressor Squadron and related units at classified facilities have operated foreign radar systems and Soviet-designed fighters to provide realistic threat representations for testing American aircraft signatures and electronic warfare systems. This work, testing the F-47's stealth against realistic threat radars in controlled conditions before it ever faces them in combat, is only possible at facilities with the security and infrastructure that Groom Lake provides. The unmanned systems lineage is the final critical thread connecting Area 51 to the F-47. The X-45 and X-47B programs demonstrated that unmanned aircraft could perform the complex, dynamic missions previously thought to require human pilots. The X-47B successfully conducted carrier-arrested landings, one of the most demanding tasks in aviation, autonomously in 2013. The lessons from these programs fed directly into the collaborative combat aircraft concept that will accompany the F-47 in combat. The CCA vehicles being developed today are the descendants of the X-planes tested at Groom Lake and in the broader classified test infrastructure. And they will multiply the F-47's combat power in ways that no previous fighter has had available. What Groom Lake represents ultimately is the American commitment to maintaining technological advantage through sustained, secret investment in the most advanced aerospace concepts imaginable. Every time that investment has been made, from the U-2 to the F-117, from Have Blue to the Bird of Prey, it has paid off in operational aircraft that changed the character of air warfare. The F-47 is the latest output of that 70-year investment. The engineers who designed it stand on the shoulders of Kelly Johnson, Ben Rich, and the thousands of men and women who worked in the Nevada desert and never talked about what they built. That lineage is the reason the United States enters the sixth-generation era with a genuine claim to air dominance. And it is the reason Area 51 remains, even today, the most important address in American air power. Leave your like, subscribe, and share. Until next time.